heart. This is what the leaf told the little cloud who thought it was a castle. There once lived a small, puffy cloud who believed he was a strong stone castle. Every morning he tried very hard to stay exactly the same shape. Tall towers, thick walls, a flag on top. When the wind came, he got scared and pushed back with all his might. "I must not change," he cried. "If I change, I will stop being me." One day a gentle breeze whispered, "Little cloud, you are not the shape you make. You are the water that moves and changes and sometimes becomes rain that helps flowers grow. The castle shape was only something you were doing for a little while." The cloud felt something loosen inside. He didn't disappear, he simply stopped spending all his energy holding one shape. He could now drift, rain, or become part of a bigger sky. And he was still completely himself, only freer. That is what no self really means. It does not say you are nothing. It says you are not a fixed, solid thing that must be guarded forever. You are more like the cloud than the castle you were pretending to be. The knight who couldn't hug anyone. In the same village there lived a knight who wore very heavy, shiny armor all day and all night. The armor had a special lock that only he could open. "Why do you never take it off?" the children asked. "Because someone might see the soft part underneath and hurt me," the knight answered. So the knight could not run fast, could not dance, and when someone tried to give him a hug, the armor went clank and pushed the person away. He felt very lonely, even though he looked strong. One morning the knight met an old turtle who said, "I used to carry a shell so heavy I could hardly move. Then I noticed something. When I let the shell be just a shell and not who I am, I could still walk and feel the warm sun on my back." The knight tried it for 1 hour. He left the helmet off. At first he felt naked and scared, but when a friend came and gave him a gentle pat on the shoulder, he felt it. Really felt it. For the first time in years, he could hug back. The armor didn't vanish. He just stopped believing it was the only thing keeping him safe. That is how trust begins, not by becoming braver inside the armor, but by discovering you don't need quite so much armor to be you, the proud statue and the light that found the cracks. High on a hill stood a beautiful white statue of a hero. Everyone admired how perfect and strong he looked. But inside the stone, tiny cracks had begun to grow. The statue was terrified. "If anyone sees the cracks, they will know I am not a real hero. I must stand very still and pretend the cracks are not there." One stormy night, a great wind blew and a piece of the shoulder fell away. The statue waited for everyone to laugh or turn away. Instead, something surprising happened. Light from the rising sun poured through the new opening and lit up the inside of the stone. The cracks became little rivers of gold. Children came and said, "Look, the statue has windows now. We can see the sky through him." The statue realized he had never been only the outside shape. He was also the space inside and the light that could move through him. The broken places had let something bigger in. That is what happens when we stop pretending we are only our perfect outside story. The cracks are not the end of us. Sometimes they are how the light finds its way in. The 5 friendly gates on the path. The leaf then showed the child a winding path with 5 friendly gates. At each gate an animal waited with a gift. Gate 1, the wise owl. The part of you that says, "I am this one special shape forever," is not as solid as you think. The cloud in the castle story. Gate 2, the gentle deer. Because that shape can change, you don't have to spend every moment protecting it. The knight taking off his helmet. Gate 3, the brave little mouse. When you don't have to protect it so hard, you can say, "I made a mistake," without feeling like you are disappearing. The mouse had once hidden every spilled seed. Now she could say sorry and plant new ones. Gate 4, the 2 hands. When you can say sorry, other hands feel safe to reach toward you. That is how real trust grows, not because you are perfect, but because you are willing to be seen. 2 hands letting go of shields to hold each other. Gate 5, the flowing river. Now being good is not about keeping your story shiny. It becomes something simpler and more alive, answering what the moment actually needs. The river doesn't argue about being a river. It simply carries what comes and waters what needs water. The child walked through all 5 gates and felt lighter at the end. The bear who stopped guarding his cave. There was once a bear who had built a very strong cave because he believed he was the broken bear. Every day he stood at the entrance with a big stick, roaring at anyone who came close, because he was sure they would see how broken he was and leave. One day a small bird landed on his stick and said, "You keep guarding the cave, but the cave is not you. You are the one who can walk out into the forest, smell the pine, and still be you even when the wind changes." The bear put the stick down for a little while. At first the wind felt cold on his fur. Then he noticed he could smell the flowers and hear the stream. He still had days when he wanted the stick back. But he also had days when he could let a friend sit beside him without roaring. He discovered something wonderful. The less energy he spent proving he was not broken, the more energy he had to actually help other animals and enjoy the forest. The broken bear story became just one story among many, instead of the only story he was allowed to tell. The Anātman drive, the gentle wind. The leaf explained that the whole adventure has a name, the Anātman drive. Anātman simply means not a fixed, separate, permanent little castle that must be defended at all cost. The drive is the quiet wind that keeps whispering, you can put the heavy armor down for a while, you can let light come through the cracks, you can walk through the 5 gates whenever you are ready. It does not force, it invites. And when you walk with it, something surprising happens. You still have a personality. You still have memories and habits and favorite colors. You simply stop believing you have to spend your whole life protecting one single picture of who you are. That is why there are no limits. The limits were mostly the walls you built to keep the picture from changing. When the walls become doors, trust can walk in and out freely. The child closed the glowing leaf and looked up at the real sky. The same swirling shapes from the green card were moving slowly across the clouds, like a reminder that stories and people and even big ideas are allowed to change shape and still be true. And somewhere, far away but very near, a podcast was being born, not as a lecture, but as this same gentle story being told to anyone who needed to hear that they are more than the armor they wear, more than the cracks they fear, and more than any single story they have ever told about themselves. The wind moved through the trees and seemed to say, "You don't have to be a perfect statue to be loved. You only have to remember you were never only stone." And the child smiled because the story had already begun to feel true in their own chest.